What if everything you've ever been taught about the origins of civilization is wrong? Not just a little wrong, but upside down. Imagine discovering that we are not the pinnacle of history, but only its survivors. That long before Mesopotamia, long before Egypt, entire civilizations rose, flourished, and vanished, leaving behind only impossible ruins and myths disguised as fairy tales. What if the stones we walk upon are not foundations, but tombstones of worlds erased? What if the flood myths told by every culture are not allegories, but memories of cataclysms that drowned empires older than memory itself? This is not the story you were taught in school. It is the story hidden in the silence of the earth, waiting for those who dare to ask forbidden questions. Tonight, let us journey together into those shadows, to uncover the echoes of forgotten advanced civilizations that may have existed long before us. Imagine a mirror dropped onto a stone floor. Its surface doesn't disappear, it splinters. Pieces scatter outward, reflecting fragments of a once whole image. This is how the story of human history often feels when we look closer than textbooks allow. We are told of a smooth and linear journey. Hunters wandering the plains, farmers sowing the first fields, kings raising cities, and eventually the gleam of skyscrapers rising against the horizon. But what if this tale is not a single polished surface? What if our past is a shattered mirror, with shards missing, some lost beneath dust and oceans, others hidden in myths and ruins that refuse to align with the tidy picture we've been taught? In most classrooms, the official story begins only 6,000 years ago. Civilizations like Sumer and Egypt, with their writing, agriculture, and monumental architecture, are hailed as humanity's first true step into complexity. Before that, we are taught to imagine an endless stretch of time filled with nomadic hunters, moving with the seasons, armed with stone and bone tools, their fires flickering against cave walls. This linear march of progress feels comforting, like a ladder we climbed rung by rung. But even a glance into the shadows of archaeology reveals something stranger, a tale filled with fractures and puzzles, as though entire pages were torn from history's book. Across the world, anomalous sites whisper a different story. In caves, bones of early humans lie beside finely worked tools that suggest skill and subtlety far beyond mere survival. On windswept plateaus, colossal stones stand in deliberate circles, carved with creatures that no longer roam those lands. Beneath shallow seas, divers stumble upon walls and foundations, drowned when ice melted at the end of the last glacial age. Each fragment is like a shard of the shattered mirror, incomplete, difficult to place, yet impossible to dismiss. Consider the span of 12,000 years. It stretches beyond the invention of the wheel, beyond the sowing of the first crops, beyond the dawn of the great cities. And yet, carved stone monuments from that era rise defiantly against the assumption that primitive means incapable. Their surfaces are alive with patterns of animals and stars, etched with a mastery that suggests vision, patience, and purpose. If the people of that time were truly simple wanderers, why do their works whisper of astronomy, ceremony, and architecture? Why do they suggest that entire civilizations may have blossomed in brilliance, only to be erased by flood, fire, or the slow grinding of ice? The historian's comfort lies in continuity. A broken spearhead leads to a bronze blade, leads to an iron sword, leads to an industrial forge. But history is not always a staircase. Sometimes it is a cycle, peaks and valleys, rising and collapsing, knowledge gained and then lost. Imagine standing on the ruins of a forgotten city, its stones buried for millennia, its people unnamed, its stories untold. Imagine the unsettling possibility that the narrative we inherit is not humanity's first ascent, but perhaps only its latest attempt. This possibility grows stronger when we turn to myths. Legends of golden ages and great floods echo across continents. From Plato's Atlantis to the Indian Mahabharata, from aboriginal tales of drowned coastlines to Native American stories of sky-born gods. The themes repeat with uncanny similarity. Scholars dismiss these as allegory or coincidence. Yet what if they are shards of memory preserved in stories when stone and parchment were destroyed? Myths, after all, are often the last vessels that survive when civilizations collapse. If civilizations rose before the familiar dawn of Sumer and Egypt, where are their traces? The earth does not easily preserve memory. Wood rots, metals corrode, and even stone crumbles given time. Entire coastlines have been swallowed since the end of the Ice Age, burying countless settlements beneath the sea. Forests reclaim cities within centuries, as seen in modern ruins overtaken by vines and roots. Catastrophe, volcanic ash, flood, shifting sands can erase a thriving culture within a single generation. When we understand this fragility, the absence of evidence begins to feel less like proof of non-existence and more like the silence of things buried too deep for us to yet uncover. And so we ask, what if advanced civilizations existed before us? Not advanced in the sense of satellites and microchips, but advanced in their own context. Skilled in architecture, astronomy, seafaring, and stonework that rivals anything we accomplish today. What if they too looked at the stars and mapped their cycles with precision? What if they navigated vast oceans when our textbooks insist they clung to rivers and caves? What if their legacies were swept away by floods, their temples dismantled by earthquakes, their stories surviving only as myths of gods and heroes? We now turn to this possibility with open eyes. We will walk among the oldest stones known to humankind, touch the submerged ruins hidden beneath restless seas, and stand before megaliths so massive they defy explanation. We will listen to the whispers of forgotten civilizations, echoes preserved in myths, artifacts, and anomalies that challenge the official tale. And as we move through these mysteries, we will remember the shattered mirror, piecing together its fragments, not to restore the original picture perfectly, but to glimpse the truths hidden in its reflection. The first shard lies in the highlands of southeastern Turkey. A hill once thought unremarkable hides beneath its surface a temple older than any city, older than any farm, older than the written word itself. Beneath layers of earth, its carved pillars rise like ancient sentinels, covered in animals and symbols that resist interpretation. A place so old, it forces us to rethink everything we know about who we were 12,000 years ago. This is Göbekli Tepe, a doorway into a forgotten past. Dawn spreads over the hills of southeastern Turkey, and the first light brushes arise the locals once called Potbelly Hill. For centuries it seemed nothing more than a gentle mound, grazed by sheep and overlooked by shepherds. But beneath this hill, hidden under tons of soil, lay a secret so profound that it would force archaeologists to redraw the map of human history. This place is Göbekli Tepe, a name now whispered with awe, for it is among the oldest known temples in the world, dating back to 12,000 years ago. Picture yourself walking among its circles of stone. Towering T-shaped pillars, some weighing as much as 16 tons, stand upright like ancient sentinels. Their surfaces are alive with carvings, lions poised to pounce, vultures with wings outstretched, serpents curling in intricate coils. These are not crude scratches left by primitive wanderers. They are deliberate works of art, etched with precision and imagination that rival anything carved in later civilizations. Each pillar seems almost alive, as though telling a story that time has muffled but not erased. And this is where the mystery deepens. Conventional history tells us that temples and monumental architecture emerged only after humans settled into farming communities some 6,000 years ago. Agriculture, we are taught, gave rise to surplus, which gave rise to cities, religion, and eventually the grand monuments of Egypt and Mesopotamia. Yet Göbekli Tepe predates agriculture by millennia. It was built not by farmers, but by hunter-gatherers. How could people supposedly preoccupied with survival organize the labor, artistry, and vision to erect something so monumental? The site was first unearthed in the 1990s by German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt. What he discovered stunned the world. Rings of massive stone pillars arranged with purpose, their alignments hinting at astronomical knowledge. Carbon dating placed the construction around 9600 BCE at the very end of the last ice age. This makes Göbekli Tepe over 7,000 years older than Stonehenge and 8,000 years older than the pyramids of Giza. Its builders possessed knowledge and skill that defied everything textbooks had long asserted about that epoch. Archaeologists debate the function of Göbekli Tepe. Some call it the world's first temple, a place of ritual where scattered groups came together to worship, feast and share in sacred ceremonies. Others suggest it was an observatory, with the arrangement of pillars aligning with constellations, recording solstices and equinoxes. Still others imagine it as a gathering place, a hub that drew nomadic peoples into cooperation, perhaps sparking the very idea of settled life. Whatever its purpose, it is clear that Göbekli Tepe was far more than a random collection of stones. It was a vision carved into reality. The pillars themselves add layers of intrigue. Many take the form of abstracted human figures, shoulders carved in relief, arms etched along the sides, hands clasped at the front. These stone giants seem to stand guard over the circles, anthropomorphic beings bridging human and cosmic. One carving even depicts a headless man, a haunting motif that appears in other ancient cultures, hinting at sacrificial rites or symbolic transformations. Another shows a vulture holding a sphere, interpreted by some as an early representation of the soul's journey beyond death. Even more astonishing than its construction is what happened next. Around 10,000 years ago, Göbekli Tepe was deliberately buried. Tons of earth and debris were piled atop the site, entombing its monuments in silence. This was no accident of erosion, it was a conscious act. But why would a people conceal the very structure that defined them? Some believe it was reverence, sealing the sacred site to protect it for eternity. Others suggest it marked a shift in beliefs, or the collapse of a culture under environmental stress. The Younger Dryas, a period of sudden climate change, brought droughts and upheavals that may have compelled its builders to abandon or conceal their work. The burial preserved Göbekli Tepe for millennia, keeping its carvings sharp and its layout intact. When modern archaeologists uncovered it, it was as though the builders had left us a time capsule, a message from a forgotten age. Yet the message remains incomplete, written in symbols we have not fully learned to read. To walk through Göbekli Tepe today is to feel the weight of mystery pressing down like the stones themselves. You imagine the labourers dragging pillars across rough terrain without wheels or metal tools, hundreds of hands working in unison. You see the artisans patiently carving intricate creatures with nothing more than flint blades. You sense the astronomers gazing skyward, charting the slow procession of stars, then encoding their knowledge into alignments of stone. It was a project requiring vision, organisation, and cultural cohesion that our image of primitive hunter-gatherers cannot explain. The implications ripple outward. If hunter-gatherers could build Göbekli Tepe, then perhaps the transition to farming was not the cause of monumental architecture, but the consequence. Gathering for rituals and building sacred spaces may have spurred the need to stay in one place, to domesticate plants and animals, to form permanent communities. Civilization in this telling did not arise from necessity, but from inspiration, from the desire to create something eternal. And yet one cannot help but wonder if Göbekli Tepe is only the beginning. How many other sites remain buried, undiscovered beneath fields, forests and seas? If a temple this complex could vanish beneath the soil for 10,000 years, what else have we lost to time? The carved lions and serpents of Göbekli Tepe still stare across millennia, their eyes etched in stone, unblinking. They are fragments of the shattered mirror of history, reflecting a forgotten world that once thrived when ice sheets still clung to the poles and the first dawns of agriculture were yet to come. These pillars ask us to reconsider everything, not just about who built them, but about the nature of civilization itself. From these windswept hills of Turkey, our journey moves to another land, another enigma. Across the seas in Indonesia, a green hill rises, cloaked in jungle. At first glance it seems natural, an ordinary mound. But beneath its terraces, ground-penetrating radar has revealed chambers, passages, and structures that may be even older than Göbekli Tepe. If true, it would rewrite history once more, pushing the origins of complex architecture tens of thousands of years into the past. This is Gunung Padang, the buried pyramid of Java. The air in West Java is thick with the fragrance of damp earth and flowering trees. Mist curls around the hills at dawn, and from a distance one mound looks much like another. Green slopes rising from rice fields, terraced with volcanic stone. Yet this particular hill is known as Gunung Padang, the Mountain of Light. For centuries locals regarded it as sacred, a place where spirits lingered. Few suspected that beneath its surface might lie one of the greatest enigmas in human history. At first glance, the summit reveals only basalt columns scattered across terraced platforms. They are dark and weathered, their geometric forms resembling a natural outcrop. When archaeologists first studied the site in the late 20th century, they assumed it was a modest megalithic arrangement, perhaps 3,000 to 4,000 years old. Ancient, yes, but not unprecedented. Indonesia's islands are dotted with stone monuments testifying to vibrant cultures long before colonial histories were written. Gunung Padang seemed another entry in this mosaic, but questions lingered. The stones atop the terraces were massive, some more than 10 feet long, weighing several tons. They had been quarried, transported, and arranged with careful precision on a steep slope. The alignment of certain terraces seemed to echo celestial patterns, hinting at astronomical intent. Local lore spoke of chambers hidden within the hill, sealed in antiquity. Was the mound truly natural? Or was it concealing something far older, something deliberately buried beneath layers of earth and time? In 2010, a team of Indonesian researchers, led by geologist Danny Hilman Natawijaya, began probing the depths of Gunung Padang with modern instruments. They employed ground-penetrating radar, seismic tomography, and core drilling, tools that could peer beneath the surface without unearthing a single stone. What they found was staggering. The scans revealed organized cavities and walls deep inside the hill, suggesting chambers and passageways not formed by nature. Core samples brought up fragments of worked stone bound by a cement-like material, hinting at human construction. The layers appeared to descend far below the visible terraces, each stratum representing an earlier phase of activity. Radiocarbon dating of organic material from deep within the mound yielded astonishing results. 10,000 years, 15,000 years, even 20,000 years or more. If these dates are accurate, Gunung Padang would not only predate Göbekli Tepe, but would be the oldest known pyramid-like structure in the world. It would mean that during the height of the last ice age, when humans are thought to have lived only in small nomadic bands, a people in Southeast Asia were quarrying stone, building terraces, and carving chambers of monumental scale. The claim, however, is not without controversy. When Natawijaya and his team published their findings in 2023, the archaeological community erupted in debate. Critics questioned the dating methods, the interpretation of radar anomalies, and the nature of the cement-like material. They argued that the oldest dates could have come from natural deposits unrelated to construction. The journal that first published the study eventually retracted it, citing methodological concerns. To many mainstream scholars, Gunung Padang remains an intriguing but unproven mystery. Yet retraction does not erase the evidence. The radar scans still show geometric cavities deep within the hill. The core samples still contain fragments that resemble worked stone. The terraces on the surface still align with celestial events as seen thousands of years ago. And the oral traditions of the region still speak of ancient builders whose knowledge faded into legend. Gunung Padang may yet be a buried pyramid, waiting for a patient hand to uncover its true story. What might have driven such construction in a time so remote? Some theorists suggest it was a ceremonial centre, its chambers designed for rituals amplified by unusual acoustic properties. Tests have shown that sounds echo and resonate in certain ways at the site, as though the builders understood and harnessed the power of vibration. Others link Gunung Padang to myths of lost continents, Mu or Lemuria, imagining it as a remnant of a great civilization scattered by floods and earthquakes. These ideas stretch beyond the evidence, but they reflect the profound sense of strangeness that clings to the hill. Even if we strip away speculation, Gunung Padang forces us to confront an uncomfortable question. How much of the ancient world lies hidden beneath what appears natural? Hills that are not hills, mounds that are not mere earth, coastlines that have shifted and drowned. Our planet is layered with erasure. Forests reclaim temples, seas submerge cities, volcanoes bury villages. Time does not preserve, it conceals. Gunung Padang is a reminder that history is fragile and that what we see is often only the surface of a much deeper story. Standing on the terraces today, you feel the weight of possibility. Basalt columns line the slope in silent rows, their geometry defying randomness. The jungle hums with cicadas, birds wheel above, and the air carries a faint vibration, as though the earth itself remembers. You cannot help but imagine the builders, thousands of years ago, shaping stones, aligning terraces with the stars, carving chambers that may still lie sealed within. Were they seeking eternity, or simply trying to anchor themselves against a world in flux? From this sacred hill, our journey turns toward the sea. For if Gunung Padang hints at a civilization forgotten beneath layers of earth, then the oceans guard entire worlds erased by water. As the ice sheets melted at the end of the last glacial age, coastlines vanished, swallowing villages and cities. Beneath the Mediterranean, the Indian Ocean, and the Pacific, divers are uncovering drowned streets and temples, echoes of cultures lost to the flood. These are the sunken worlds, where the forgotten civilizations of our past may yet linger, preserved in silence beneath the waves. The ocean at dawn is a mirror of shifting light. Waves roll with a rhythm older than memory, their surfaces concealing depths where time itself seems to pause. It is here, beneath the restless seas, that some of the most haunting clues to forgotten civilizations are found. When the last ice age ended, vast glaciers melted and sea levels rose by over 120 meters. Entire coastlines vanished, drowning valleys, villages, and perhaps cities that had once flourished. The ocean, in its silence, became both tomb and guardian. One such guardian lies off the coast of Israel. In the shallow waters of the Mediterranean, divers discovered the Neolithic village of Atlantis, submerged nearly 9,000 years ago. Stone houses, walls, and even human skeletons rest on the seabed. In the centre stands a circle of 7 megaliths surrounding what was once a freshwater spring, a design echoing other ancient stone circles across the world. The preservation is astonishing. Hearths with traces of ash, tools of flint and bone, remains of wheat, barley, and domesticated animals. Here was a settled community with agriculture, ritual, and trade, long before the flood claimed it. Atlantis whispers that advanced ways of living existed far earlier than our textbooks comfortably allow. Further east, in the Gulf of Kambat near modern Dwarka in India, sonar scans revealed an even greater enigma. Beneath the murky waters stretch stone walls, steps, and geometric patterns that resemble streets. Some samples dredged from the site have been carbon dated to more than 9,000 years ago. Ancient Sanskrit texts describe Dwarka as the legendary city of Lord Krishna, built with golden palaces and bustling harbours before it was swallowed by the sea. Scholars debate whether these ruins are truly the Dwarka of myth, but their existence blurs the line between legend and archaeology. Were such epics the echoes of memories, distorted by time yet rooted in real catastrophe? In the Aegean Sea off Greece lies Pavlopetri, a Bronze Age city submerged around 5,000 years ago. Unlike many fragmented sites, Pavlopetri is remarkably intact. Streets intersect in right angles, courtyards open into plazas, and a sophisticated water management system runs through the ruins. It is as though the city was frozen in the moment of its drowning, a perfect snapshot of ancient life preserved beneath the waves. The very completeness of Pavlopetri suggests that many more such cities might lie hidden, invisible beneath layers of sediment and seaweed. Perhaps the most controversial of all is Yonaguni, off the coast of Japan. Discovered in the 1980s by a diver, the site descends in massive terraces, with right-angled steps and broad platforms that seem carved by deliberate hands. Some claim it is a natural formation, shaped by ocean currents and tectonic fractures. Yet the sharp edges, geometric precision, and possible tool marks hint at human involvement. Estimates suggest it could date back more than 10,000 years, a time when this land was still above water. If Yonaguni is man-made, it would stand among the oldest monuments on Earth, evidence of a civilization erased by rising seas. If natural, it remains a reminder of how the Earth itself can mimic human artistry, blurring the line between nature and culture. Across these sites, a theme emerges. The ocean holds memories of worlds lost at the end of the Ice Age. Myths of floods echo this reality. In Mesopotamia, the Epic of Gilgamesh tells of waters that swallowed all but a chosen few. The Bible speaks of Noah's Ark. Hindu scriptures recount Vishnu guiding survivors to safety. Aboriginal stories in Australia describe coastlines that once existed, now drowned. These stories are too consistent across too many cultures to dismiss entirely. They are like songs carried through millennia, preserving fragments of history when stone could not. If Atlantis, Dwarka, Pavlopetri, and Yonaguni are but a handful of sites we've uncovered, how many more lie hidden beneath the 95% of the ocean floor that remains unexplored? Sonar surveys have barely scratched the surface, and each discovery suggests countless others waiting in the silence below. The rising seas of 12,000 years ago would have erased vast stretches of human habitation. If civilizations thrived along those lost coasts, their remains now sleep beneath hundreds of feet of water. The idea of sunken worlds forces us to reconsider what advanced means. These were communities that built houses, temples, and harbours. They understood agriculture, navigation, and urban planning. They were not wandering tribes, but organised societies. Their disappearance does not diminish their brilliance. It underscores the fragility of civilization in the face of climate and catastrophe. Standing on the shore today, you can feel the waves carrying secrets, whispering of streets where children played, markets where traders shouted, and temples where rituals echoed. To dive among the ruins is to drift between worlds, suspended in time, seeing foundations meant for feet now walked by fish. From the drowned coastlines of the ancient world, our journey turns once more to the land, but to stones so massive they seem to defy gravity itself. In the high valleys of Lebanon, on the ridges of Peru, and in the windswept plains of Bolivia, blocks larger than buses rest in perfect arrangements, mocking the limits of bronze chisels and wooden rollers. If sunken cities remind us of fragility, these megaliths remind us of endurance, standing for thousands of years as though daring us to understand. The sun sets over Lebanon's Bekaa Valley, painting the horizon in hues of gold and crimson. Here stands the ancient city of Baalbek, known in Roman times as Heliopolis, the city of the sun. Amid the ruins of grand temples lies something older, stranger, and far more difficult to explain. 3 colossal limestone blocks form part of a foundation wall, each measuring over 20 metres in length and weighing nearly 800 tons. Known as the Trilithon, These stones are so perfectly fitted that not even a blade of grass can slide between them. And nearby in a quarry lies an even greater enigma. The stone of the pregnant woman, partially cut from bedrock, estimated to weigh 1 to 200 tons. Modern cranes struggle with half that weight, yet thousands of years ago, someone carved, moved, and placed these giants with unerring precision. How was it possible? The Roman architects who built atop the site left no record of having moved such blocks. Indeed, their own construction pales before these titanic stones. The trilithon seems to belong to another age, another people whose skills are veiled in mystery. Theories abound: ropes and rollers, sledges dragged across sand, lubrication with oil or water, but when scaled up to 800 tons, such explanations falter. The stones of Baalbek stand as mute defiance against the limits we imagine for the ancient world. Across the globe, in the high Andes above Cusco, Peru, another set of stones tells a similar story. The fortress of Sacsayhuamán rises with zigzagging walls built of massive andesite blocks, some weighing over 100 tons. Each block is cut in irregular, polygonal shapes, yet they interlock with such precision that no mortar is needed. Earthquakes that have flattened cities left these walls unshaken, their joints absorbing seismic shocks like the flex of a living body. The craftsmanship is so advanced that modern architects still study it with awe. Imagine carving a 12-sided block, each angle perfectly matched to its neighbours, then hauling it uphill and slotting it into place without error. The builders of Sacsayhuamán possessed not only strength, but a mastery of geometry and engineering far beyond what their tools supposedly allowed. Further south, on the windswept altiplano of Bolivia, lies Puma Punku, part of the Tiwanaku complex. Here the enigma sharpens into near impossibility. Blocks of red sandstone and andesite lie scattered, some weighing over 100 tons. Their surfaces are cut so flat and their edges so sharp that they resemble machine-milled components. Intricate channels and interlocking joints suggest an almost modular design, as though the builders mass-produced elements for assembly. Some stones display perfect right angles, drill holes, and grooves carved with a precision that rivals modern stone-cutting equipment. Yet Puma Punku dates back at least 1,500 years, and some researchers argue that its origins may be far older. Mainstream archaeology attributes these feats to patience, skill, and simple tools: pounding stones, sand abrasion, and countless hands labouring over decades. Experimental archaeology has shown it is possible, in theory, to replicate some of these methods. Yet questions remain. Why such colossal stones when smaller blocks would have sufficed? How did the builders transport them across uneven terrain, up steep slopes, and in thin air at altitudes over 12,000 feet? And why the astonishing precision, far beyond what was structurally necessary? The mysteries of Baalbek, Sacsayhuamán, and Puma Punku invite us to rethink our assumptions about the capabilities of ancient peoples. Were they merely persistent and ingenious, pushing their tools to unimaginable limits? Or did they possess techniques we no longer understand, forgotten sciences of sound, leverage, or even energy? Some theorists whisper of acoustic levitation, vibrations that could lighten stone. Others imagine the harnessing of geomagnetic forces or chemical treatments that softened rock before carving. While evidence for these methods is speculative, the stones themselves demand explanation. They are not theories, they are facts carved into the earth. Standing before these giants, one feels both small and connected. The stones radiate endurance. Empires have risen and fallen around them. Earthquakes, storms, and wars have raged, yet they remain. To touch their surfaces is to feel time condensed into stone, to sense the hands of artisans who lived thousands of years ago, shaping the impossible with patience and vision. The motif of giants recurs not only in stone but in myth. Across cultures, legends speak of titans, Nephilim, or semi-divine beings who raised monuments beyond human ability. Are these simply metaphors or distorted memories of real builders whose skills surpassed later generations? Perhaps the true giants were not in stature, but in knowledge, ancient engineers whose wisdom was lost when their civilizations collapsed. From the solidity of stone, our path turns once more toward the fluidity of myth, for scattered across the world are stories of continents that vanished, civilizations drowned, and golden ages reduced to memory. Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu, names that shimmer between fable and forgotten history. What if these myths are not fantasies, but echoes of real civilizations erased by flood and fire? In the quiet of twilight, stories take on a life of their own. The glow of firelight once cast shadows on cave walls as voices told of worlds lost, of lands that flourished and then sank beneath the sea. These tales, Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu, have haunted humanity for centuries. Scholars often relegate them to myth, yet the persistence of these stories across distant cultures suggests they may be more than imagination. Perhaps they are fractured memories of civilizations forgotten, preserved in the poetry of myth when stone and parchment were erased. The most famous of these is Atlantis, first described by Plato nearly 2,400 years ago. In his dialogues, Atlantis was a mighty island empire beyond the Pillars of Hercules, wealthy and technologically advanced, before it succumbed to catastrophe and vanished beneath the waves. Plato presented the story as allegory, a cautionary tale about hubris. But what if his tale was a window into a much older memory? For generations, seekers have tried to locate Atlantis, suggesting sites from the Mediterranean to the Caribbean, from Antarctica to the mid-Atlantic ridge. While no consensus has emerged, the idea itself continues to captivate. The image of a lost world, sophisticated and radiant, swallowed by the sea, resonates with a truth deeper than fact. In the 19th century, Western mystics and theosophists began speaking of Lemuria, a hypothetical continent in the Indian Ocean. Scientists of that era had speculated about sunken land bridges to explain the distribution of species, and theosophists wove these ideas into a grand narrative of a vanished civilization, wise, spiritual, perhaps even proto-human. Though science has since explained those biogeographic puzzles differently, the legend of Lemuria endures in myth and esoteric tradition. In some versions, Lemurians were tall, luminous beings who communicated telepathically, their wisdom lost in a cataclysmic flood. While unverifiable, the story still echoes with themes familiar across cultures. A golden age cut short, knowledge drowned, memory preserved only in fragments. Even more elusive is the tale of Mu, first popularized by Augustus Le Plongeon and later James Churchward in the early 20th century. Mu, they claimed, was a vast continent in the Pacific, home to an advanced civilization that disappeared beneath the ocean. While mainstream geology denies such a continent's existence, the myth found fertile ground in Polynesian and Mesoamerican stories of lost lands and sunken kingdoms. Easter Island's Moai statues, the myths of Polynesian navigators, and even the mysterious structures of Yonaguni have been woven into this narrative. Mu may never have existed as a landmass, but as an idea, it represents the Pacific counterpart to Atlantis, a world erased, yet still whispering through the traditions of its descendants. What unites these myths is their universality. The motif of a lost civilization, drowned by water or destroyed by fire, appears on nearly every continent. The flood stories of Mesopotamia, the biblical account of Noah, the Hindu tale of Manu, the oral traditions of Aboriginal Australians describing rising seas, the legends of Native Americans recounting lands swallowed by water, all echo the same refrain. At the end of the last ice age, seas did indeed rise, swallowing coastlines that had been home to millions. Could these myths preserve a memory of that transformation, a story so traumatic it imprinted itself into humanity's collective memory? There is also the matter of tantalizing physical evidence. Off the coast of India, As mentioned with Dwarka, stone foundations lie beneath the waves, their dates stretching back beyond accepted timelines. In Micronesia, the artificial stone city of Nan Madol rises from the ocean, a sprawling complex of basalt columns resembling a Venice of the Pacific. While not submerged, its scale and mystery feed into the lore of Mu, and in the Atlantic, the Azores archipelago hints at volcanic activity that might once have created, then destroyed, larger landmasses. None of this confirms Atlantis, Lemuria, or Mu, yet each piece unsettles the line between myth and reality. The enduring power of these stories lies in their ambiguity. They are neither wholly true nor wholly false. They are bridges, connecting geology with imagination, oral tradition with archaeology. They remind us that myth is often a vessel for memory, preserving truths in symbolic form. When a culture has no writing, stories become libraries. A flood myth may encode the trauma of rising seas. A tale of gods descending from the sky may preserve memories of meteors or cosmic events. And a legend of a lost golden age may reflect the genuine existence of civilizations erased by time. To dismiss these myths entirely is to ignore their resilience. They have outlasted empires, carried across generations, whispering still. To embrace them uncritically is to risk illusion. The truth lies somewhere in between, in the space where archaeology meets story, where ruins meet memory. As we leave behind the myths of continents that may never have been, we step toward evidence of catastrophe that unquestionably was. Around 12,800 years ago, the world was plunged into sudden chaos. Temperatures plummeted, fires raged, seas rose, and countless species vanished. This was the Younger Dryas cataclysm, a turning point in Earth's history, and perhaps the event that consigned advanced civilizations, real or remembered, to oblivion. The world can change in a single breath of time. Imagine a landscape at the end of the Ice Age, 12,800 years ago. Vast glaciers retreating, rivers swelling, plains blossoming with life. Then suddenly, the climate plunges back into a deep freeze. Temperatures drop, megafauna vanish, and human societies already fragile are thrust into chaos. This event, known as the Younger Dryas, is one of the most dramatic climate shifts in Earth's history, and some believe it may hold the key to understanding why entire civilizations were forgotten. For over 1 million years, Earth had cycled through ice ages and interglacial warmth, but the Younger Dryas was different. It arrived abruptly, as if a switch had been flipped. In less than a generation, much of the northern hemisphere froze again, forests withered, and rainfall patterns shifted violently. For centuries, the planet teetered in this cold, unstable state before warming resumed around 11,600 years ago, the very period Plato dated the fall of Atlantis. What caused this sudden upheaval? Mainstream explanations point to disruptions in ocean currents, perhaps triggered by meltwater floods from retreating glaciers. But another hypothesis, the Younger Dryas impact theory, suggests something more cataclysmic: fragments of a comet striking Earth. Evidence for this lies in a strange geological signature called the black mat layer, found across multiple continents. Within it are tiny spheres of melted rock, nanodiamonds formed under extreme heat, and spikes in platinum concentrations. These clues hint at firestorms sweeping continents, ignited by cosmic impacts that scarred the Earth and darkened its skies. If a comet did shatter in Earth's atmosphere, its fragments raining down like incandescent arrows, the consequences would have been devastating. Wildfires could have consumed vast forests, sending plumes of smoke into the stratosphere. Herds of mammoths, mastodons, and giant ground sloths, already struggling with habitat loss, perished in staggering numbers. Human groups, scattered across the globe, would have watched their world collapse into cold, famine, and chaos. This was not merely an ecological crisis, it was a cultural amnesia. Any societies that had risen before the Younger Dryas whether advanced hunter-gatherers, early temple builders, or even something more, would have been shattered. Coastal settlements drowned as seas rose. Agricultural experiments faltered under sudden drought. Populations declined, leaving only fragments of memory encoded in stone circles, oral traditions, and myths of floods and fire. Archaeologists now recognize that the Younger Dryas was a crucible. At Göbekli Tepe, built just after the cataclysm, the carvings include what some researchers interpret as a celestial record of a comet impact, with vultures, scorpions, and other symbols forming an astronomical tableau. If true, the pillars may not only be art, but testimony, a warning carved in stone by survivors who had witnessed the heavens fall. The timing is uncanny. Around 11,600 years ago, as the Younger Dryas ended, the planet warmed rapidly and sea levels surged in what geologists call meltwater pulse 1b. Coastlines retreated by kilometers within a single human lifetime. Cities, if they existed along those shores, would have been swallowed. To later generations, these losses would become the stories of sunken worlds, floods sent by gods, and golden ages drowned beneath angry seas. Whether by comet, flood, or abrupt climate shifts, the Younger Dryas reminds us that human history does not unfold in gentle progress. It lurches, it collapses, it begins again. Civilizations may rise, only to vanish in silence, leaving behind ruins that seem too advanced for their time because we have forgotten the time before. The catastrophe motif echoes in myth. The Maya spoke of suns destroyed by fire and flood. Hindu texts recount cosmic weapons blazing like the sun. The Norse told of Ragnarök, fire consuming the world before renewal. Perhaps these myths, like geological strata, preserve layers of memory, each retelling a shard of what was once endured. The Younger Dryas is not just a chapter of climate science, it is a possible hinge between forgotten civilizations and our own. It offers a mechanism for erasure, explaining why monumental sites like Göbekli Tepe appear suddenly, fully formed, as if built by hands already carrying lost memories. It suggests that the gap in our record, the broken mirror of history, may not be an accident, but the scar of catastrophe. As the ice receded and seas rose, survivors must have looked upon the ruins of their world with awe and fear. Some rebuilt, carving their knowledge into stone. Others wandered, carrying their stories as myths of fire, floods, and gods. And so the echo of the Younger Dryas lingers, not only in geology, but in the imagination of every culture that remembers a time when the world itself turned against them. From the ashes of this cataclysm, questions emerge. How did survivors adapt? Did they cling to fragments of knowledge from earlier civilizations? And what technologies or sciences might have been lost in the collapse, leaving behind only whispers in myth and impossible stones as their testament? To follow these questions, we must turn to the tools themselves. The methods by which ancient builders shaped stone, moved mountains, and left us monuments that should have been impossible. Were these only the fruits of persistence, or did they reflect lost technologies now buried as surely as the civilizations that once wielded them? Imagine standing before the blocks of Puma Punku. They gleam under the Bolivian sun with edges so sharp, right angles so precise, and surfaces so flat that they could have been cut yesterday on a machine in a modern workshop. And yet, these stones were carved over 1,000 years ago, or perhaps much earlier if some alternative chronologies hold true. The puzzle is not only their size but their perfection. How did ancient builders with no steel, no diamond-tipped drills, no mechanized saws achieve such mastery? The question hangs in the air like the shimmer of heat over stone. Did they possess knowledge we have forgotten, or technology that has been lost? Mainstream archaeology insists the answer lies in patience, skill, and simple tools. Flint chisels, pounding stones, abrasives like sand and water, all used with persistence over generations. Experimental archaeologists have shown that it is possible to shape hard stone with softer tools if given enough time. But the sheer scale of the work, the uniformity of its precision, and the speed implied by entire complexes suggests something more elusive. Consider the possibility of lost sciences. Myths across cultures speak of sound as a force capable of moving mountains. Tibetan stories tell of monks levitating stones with chanting. Ancient Egyptian texts hint at the use of harmonic tones in temple construction. Could vibration or resonance have been harnessed in ways we no longer understand? Modern science acknowledges acoustic levitation on a small scale, beads of matter suspended in the air by sound waves. Might ancient engineers have discovered principles of resonance powerful enough to shift tons of stone? Then there are theories of geopolymer technology, that some monuments were not carved but cast, the stone reconstituted like an early form of concrete. Researchers studying the pyramids of Egypt have found traces of microstructures suggesting artificial stone. If true, it would explain the seamless joins and uniform surfaces that still baffle engineers. Such a technique, if once known, could have been lost during a cataclysm, leaving only its products behind. Other possibilities venture into the chemical realm. Some fringe hypotheses propose that acids or heat treatments were used to soften rock, making it malleable before hardening again. Andesite, one of the hardest stones at Puma Punku, resists bronze tools, yet some blocks display drilled holes, as if shaped with mechanical precision. Could ancient builders have known recipes of plant-based solvents or mineral concoctions now vanished from memory? No residue remains to confirm it, but absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. What of magnetism? Many megalithic sites align precisely with magnetic north or celestial events. Some theorists suggest that ancient peoples understood Earth's electromagnetic field, perhaps even harnessed it for construction. Certain stones, when struck, resonate like bells, hinting at properties that might once have been deliberately used. Imagine an ancient workshop where stone vibrated and hummed under unseen forces, shaped not only by hand, but by the Earth's own energies. Skeptics remind us that extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof, and yet the stones themselves stand as proof of extraordinary achievement, even if their methods remain veiled. The paradox is that we cannot fully explain with certainty how these monuments were made. Our reconstructions are guesses, our experiments approximations. The builders themselves remain silent, their tools perhaps made of perishable materials long decayed, their techniques passed down orally and lost when catastrophe struck. Perhaps the greatest loss was not a single invention, but a mindset, a holistic way of seeing the world where engineering, spirituality, and observation were woven together. Ancient builders may have seen stone not as dead matter, but as living substance, responsive to rhythm, geometry, and intention. Their tools might not have been machines of steel, but knowledge of harmony, balance, and patience honed across centuries. This worldview, erased by flood and fire, might be as alien to us as our machines would be to them. When we walk among these ruins, we feel both awe and unease. Awe because the stones radiate mastery. Unease because they hint that we are not the pinnacle of knowledge, but only one branch of a vast and broken tree. What if other branches once flourished, bearing fruits of science or craft unlike our own, only to be cut away by catastrophe? What if our skyscrapers and satellites, too, are fragile blossoms destined to wither, leaving future generations to puzzle over our ruins with the same bewilderment? The question of lost technology leads naturally to a wider one. Were these feats isolated, or were they part of something larger? A network of civilizations sharing knowledge across oceans and continents. The similarities between megalithic sites in South America, the Middle East, and Asia suggest patterns too widespread to be coincidence. Could there once have been a global web of advanced cultures, connected not by airplanes and fiber optics, but by stars, seas, and memory? Stand before the stones of Sacsayhuamán in Peru, then journey in your mind to the walls of Baalbek in Lebanon, or the terraces of Gunung Padang in Indonesia. Thousands of miles apart, built by cultures separated by oceans, yet the echoes between them are undeniable. Massive blocks carved with impossible precision, walls built to withstand earthquakes, alignments with stars that guided the passage of time. Are these similarities mere coincidence, or do they suggest something more? A forgotten web of civilizations connected in ways we have yet to imagine. The idea of a global network in deep antiquity is controversial, yet tantalizing. Mainstream archaeology assumes that ancient peoples developed independently, that similarities arise from universal human needs: shelter, ritual, defense. But what if these shared motifs are not the result of parallel invention, but of shared memory? Could there have been routes of exchange long before the Silk Road or transoceanic voyages of recorded history? Consider the role of the sea. During the Ice Age, when sea levels were lower, coastlines stretched farther, islands were larger, and maritime travel may have been easier than we assume. Cultures living along those shores could have developed seafaring traditions, linking communities across what are now vast oceans. When the seas rose, those routes were drowned, and with them the evidence of connection. Yet the myths of great navigators, Polynesian wayfinders, Phoenician mariners, even tales of Atlantean fleets, hint at memories of ancient networks that once tied distant peoples together. Archaeological anomalies support this possibility. In South America, legends describe bearded strangers arriving by sea long before Europeans. In Egypt, depictions of boats show advanced hulls capable of ocean travel. The stone spheres of Costa Rica resemble megalithic artifacts in Europe and Asia. The pyramids of Mesoamerica echo the step pyramids of Mesopotamia. Each alone is intriguing. Together they form a pattern that whispers of forgotten links. The alignments with the sky deepen the mystery. At Giza, the pyramids mirror Orion's belt. At Teotihuacan in Mexico, the layout reflects planetary patterns. At Göbekli Tepe, animal carvings may encode constellations. The Nazca lines in Peru stretch across desert plains like messages to the heavens. Why do so many ancient cultures, separated by oceans, look upward with such precision? Was it a universal impulse or the inheritance of a shared astronomical tradition? Some theorists speak of a mother culture, a progenitor civilization that dispersed knowledge across the world. In this view, Atlantis, Lemuria, or Mu might represent not literal continents, but symbolic memories of such a network. Survivors of a cataclysm could have spread across the globe, carrying fragments of architecture, myth, and science, planting seeds that later cultures nurtured into their own unique traditions. The similarities we see today may be the faint roots of that forgotten tree. Skeptics argue that human ingenuity alone explains these patterns. Geometry, astronomy, and monumental stonework are within the reach of any culture with patience and observation. Yet this explanation often underestimates the scale of the similarities. It does not fully address why flood myths appear everywhere, why serpent deities wind through cultures from Egypt to Mesoamerica, or why the same motifs of sun, stars, and cosmic order emerge again and again. Coincidence may account for some, but the resonance feels deeper. Imagine an ancient world alive with trade routes now drowned, navigators steering by the stars, carrying stories, seeds, and stones across vast waters. Imagine that their memory survived not in maps but in myth, encoded in tales of gods descending, of continents lost, of golden ages remembered in fragments. If such a network once existed, then the ruins we study are not isolated marvels, but pieces of a global puzzle, shards of a mirror reflecting a forgotten unity. This possibility challenges us to broaden our perspective. We tend to view history through the lens of nation-states and isolated cultures. But the Earth itself may hold the memory of connections erased by time. As new technologies reveal submerged ruins and hidden landscapes, we may discover that humanity's story is not one of separate beginnings, but of intertwined destinies stretching far deeper into the past than we ever dreamed. From speculation of global webs, our path now turns to the tools of discovery in our own time. For modern archaeology is undergoing its own revolution. With lasers, satellites, and even genetic traces in soil, we are uncovering entire cities once thought lost forever. Technology, it seems, is giving voice to the forgotten, illuminating the global past that myth has long whispered. The jungle canopy ripples like an emerald sea, concealing everything beneath. For centuries, explorers trudged through the Amazon or Cambodia and found only fragments. A pyramid half swallowed by vines, a wall eroded by rain. Whole cities remained invisible, erased not by time, but by nature's embrace. Yet today, with the sweep of a laser beam from an aircraft or drone, the past is revealed in astonishing clarity. This is the quiet revolution of modern archaeology. A new set of eyes piercing the soil, the forest, and the sea, uncovering forgotten civilizations without lifting a single spade. LiDAR, or light detection and ranging, is among the most transformative tools. By firing millions of laser pulses per second and stripping away the reflection of leaves, LiDAR produces bare earth maps of astonishing precision. In Guatemala, it revealed sprawling Maya metropolises hidden beneath dense forest, complete with causeways, reservoirs, and defensive walls that once supported millions. In Cambodia, it showed that Angkor was not merely a city of temples, but the heart of a vast urban network stretching for miles, rivaling modern capitals in scale. These discoveries suggest that what we thought were isolated monuments were in fact parts of massive civilizations, their extent concealed by centuries of overgrowth. Where lasers illuminate forests, ground-penetrating radar, GPR, peers into the earth. At Gunung Padang, GPR revealed cavities and chambers deep within the hill, hinting at human construction long before conventional timelines allow. In Europe, radar surveys have traced the outlines of Roman villas and medieval settlements buried beneath farmland. In Egypt, hidden tombs and temple foundations emerge as ghostly patterns beneath the desert sands. GPR gives us the gift of sight into the invisible, allowing us to map what lies beneath without disturbing it, a conversation with the earth itself. Yet even more extraordinary are the whispers carried in the soil, environmental DNA, or eDNA. Every creature leaves traces, skin cells, pollen, fragments of bone, even the residue of meals. By sampling soil layers, researchers can reconstruct entire ecosystems and human presence without a single artifact. In Siberia, eDNA revealed human habitation tens of thousands of years earlier than bones suggested. At Atlit Yam, submerged beneath the Mediterranean, eDNA traces of wheat, barley, and livestock paint a vivid picture of Neolithic life. In caves of North America, soil has yielded genetic echoes of people who walked the land thousands of years before stone tools confirmed their presence. Artificial intelligence is now joining the effort, combing through satellite imagery and aerial photographs at speeds no human could match. AI can detect subtle patterns invisible to the eye, a faint ridge marking an ancient wall, a geometric alignment signaling a buried temple. In the deserts of Arabia, AI has revealed thousands of previously unknown stone structures. In South America, it has identified earthworks so vast they could only be appreciated from the sky. These are not only new discoveries, but reminders that the Earth still carries secrets, waiting to be revealed by those with the tools to listen. What do these technologies mean for the question of forgotten civilizations? They are dissolving the barrier between myth and evidence. Where Aboriginal oral traditions describe drowned coastlines, LiDAR and bathymetric scans now reveal ancient shorelines beneath the sea. Where legends spoke of great cities swallowed by jungle, lasers confirm that vast urban sprawls once thrived. Each tool validates fragments of story, showing that the past is not as simple as we imagined. And perhaps most profoundly, these tools democratize discovery. No longer is archaeology confined to a handful of expeditions. High-resolution satellite data is available to anyone with a computer. Drones equipped with LiDAR can be flown by local communities to map sacred lands. Even soil DNA can be analysed by modest labs. This widening access means that forgotten civilizations may be uncovered not only by professionals, but by citizens, elders, and storytellers whose traditions hold keys to hidden sites. Picture a village in the Amazon where oral tales speak of stone roads buried beneath vines. A drone rises, scanning the canopy, and on a digital map, the ancient roads glow once more. Imagine a desert tribe pointing to a hill they say hides their ancestors' houses. Ground-penetrating radar confirms the outlines of buried walls. In these moments, past and present meet, myth and science converging. Yet this revolution also carries urgency. Climate change, deforestation, and rising seas threaten sites before they can be documented. Digital preservation, 3D scans, virtual reality reconstructions, is becoming the final refuge for monuments that may vanish. Imagine walking through a virtual Göbekli Tepe, pillars glowing under simulated starlight, or diving into a digital Dwarka, its streets alive with echoes of the sea. Technology preserves even as the physical world fades. The soil is no longer mute. It speaks with lasers, with radio waves, with DNA, with the logic of machines that see patterns we cannot. And what it tells us is simple yet profound. We have underestimated the scale, the complexity, and the endurance of human civilization. What we once called myth is often memory. What we once thought barren is often rich. From these revelations, our journey moves into the realm of oral traditions, the original libraries of humanity. Before paper, before stone inscriptions, knowledge lived in voices, in stories sung across millennia. These tales, often dismissed as legend, may yet prove to be the most enduring evidence of forgotten civilizations. Before tablets of clay or ink upon papyrus, knowledge lived in voices. Around fires, beneath stars, in long ceremonial chants and whispered tales, humanity stored its memories not in books, but in the breath of generations. Oral traditions were more than entertainment. They were libraries, vessels carrying history, astronomy, medicine, and myth across millennia. And in these stories, we may find echoes of forgotten civilizations, erased from stone but preserved in sound. Consider the Aboriginal peoples of Australia. Their Dreamtime stories stretch back tens of thousands of years, preserving vivid descriptions of landscapes that no longer exist. Some tales speak of coastlines swallowed by the sea, islands now beneath the waves, and volcanoes long extinct. Modern geology confirms that sea levels rose dramatically after the last ice age, flooding those very regions. Here, myth aligns with science. Oral tradition becomes not fancy but memory, an ancient eyewitness account of a world transformed. In North America, tribes like the Navajo and Hopi tell of migrations guided by the stars. Their stories include precise references to celestial cycles, echoing astronomical events tracked across centuries. These narratives were not random. They encoded calendars, navigation, and agricultural rhythms. Among the Lakota, the Pleiades are not just stars, but a sacred clock, measuring seasons for planting and ritual. To dismiss such stories as mere fable is to overlook their function as repositories of knowledge. Across the Pacific, Polynesian navigators mastered the art of sailing vast oceans using charts that encoded star maps. These charts, learned word for word, allowed voyagers to cross thousands of miles guided only by memory and the night sky. In each rhythm and cadence was geometry, astronomy, and generations of accumulated wisdom. Their oral maps rival modern GPS in precision. Such mastery suggests a heritage of seafaring that may reach back into times when forgotten civilizations once thrived along now-drowned coasts. Flood myths are perhaps the most universal of all oral traditions. From the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh to the biblical story of Noah, from Hindu tales of Manu to Native American accounts of waters swallowing the land, the motif repeats. Everywhere, waters rise, the world drowns, and a remnant survives. The consistency across continents hints at shared memory of real events, the relentless sea level rise that followed the Younger Dryas. Survivors, scattered and traumatized, encoded their experience in story so it would never be forgotten. And it never was. But oral traditions do more than recall catastrophe. They may preserve fragments of lost science. In West Africa, griots memorized genealogies and events with astonishing precision, some verified by later historians. Among the Dogon of Mali, stories describe Sirius and its invisible companion star. Knowledge that defies easy explanation given the limits of naked-eye astronomy. Whether coincidence, intuition, or inheritance of forgotten observation, such lore suggests layers of knowledge embedded in myth. The fragility of oral tradition is part of its power. A single broken chain, a lost generation of storytellers, can erase centuries of memory. Yet some traditions endure despite conquest, disease, or exile. Their survival across vast stretches of time speaks to the importance placed upon them. Storytellers were trained from childhood, their memories sharpened by rhythm, repetition, and ritual. Words became more than words. They were bonds with ancestors, with the land, with the cosmos itself. Imagine sitting beside an elder as they recount a tale of a time when stars fell from the sky and the world was set aflame. The children listen wide-eyed, unaware that the story may encode memory of a meteor impact. Imagine a chant describing an island swallowed by the sea, guiding future generations away from vanished coasts. In such moments, we glimpse how oral traditions bridge myth and history, preserving what stone could not. For our exploration of forgotten civilizations, these traditions are invaluable. They suggest that human memory reaches farther back than we once believed, perhaps as far as the cataclysms that erased earlier cultures. They remind us that civilizations may be forgotten in ruins, yet remembered in song. As we leave behind the libraries of the voice, we turn toward the minds that created them. For if myths preserved memory and stones preserved achievement, what of the people themselves? Were they truly primitive wanderers, or were they, like us, beings of intelligence and creativity, shaping worlds both physical and imagined? Imagine the hands of a stonecutter at Göbekli Tepe 12,000 years ago. Calloused and scarred, they hold a flint tool no larger than your palm. With slow, deliberate strokes, the artisan etches a vulture with wings outstretched, its feathers caught mid-flight, its form alive with motion. These hands belong not to a primitive wanderer, but to an artist whose eye rivals any master sculptor of today. The human mind has not changed in its essence. The same brain that crafts microchips once carved lions into limestone. The difference lies not in intelligence, but in what has survived to tell the story. For too long, history has measured advancement by what was written down, by what was left in archives of clay or parchment. Those without writing were called prehistoric, their voices erased because their words did not survive. But the feats of ancient builders speak across millennia. Precision stonework in Peru, celestial alignments in Turkey, urban planning beneath the seas of Greece. These are not the works of simple minds stumbling toward progress. They are the works of human beings as intelligent, creative, and ambitious as ourselves. Consider the engineering brilliance of Sacsayhuamán's walls. Each block, some over 100 tons, was shaped with uncanny accuracy. Their joints resist earthquakes better than many modern buildings. To fit a 12-sided stone against its neighbours without mortar requires not only trial and error, but a profound grasp of geometry. These builders may not have known the word trigonometry, but their work embodies its principles. Or look to Puma Punku's modular stones, carved with interlocking shapes that resemble prefabricated components. They suggest a system of design, quality control, and standardization that feels strikingly modern. To us, such achievements seem miraculous, yet they may simply reflect what human beings do best: observe, adapt, and refine techniques through generations of practice. The astronomical alignments of ancient monuments also reveal mental sophistication. The builders of Göbekli Tepe oriented pillars towards specific constellations. The Egyptians aligned the pyramids to cardinal points with a precision within fractions of a degree. The Maya tracked Venus and lunar eclipses with accuracy rivaling today's algorithms. Such feats were not the product of guesswork, but of centuries of observation, careful record-keeping, whether written or oral, and the ability to see patterns invisible to casual eyes. Cognitive archaeology reminds us that anatomically modern humans, going back at least 50,000 years, had brains essentially identical to ours. They had the capacity for language, abstraction, creativity, and innovation. What they lacked were the cumulative layers of technology we inherit. Each generation began closer to zero, vulnerable to erasure when catastrophe struck. A flood, a drought, or a comet could scatter a people, obliterate their archives, and force their descendants to rebuild from fragments. What we call primitive may often be humanity after a reset, beginning again with the same flame of intelligence, but with ashes where libraries once stood. This reframing dissolves the myth of linear progress. Civilization may not be a ladder climbed once, but a fire rekindled many times. Each cycle preserves embers, stone monuments, oral stories, astronomical lore, while much else is lost. To see our ancestors as equals in intellect is to recognize that forgotten civilizations may have achieved wonders beyond our imagining, only to vanish through no fault of their own. And this recognition brings humility. Our skyscrapers, satellites, and digital archives feel enduring, but they are as fragile as reed huts before the forces of time. 1,000 years of neglect could erase much of our world. 10,000 could bury it beyond recognition. If future archaeologists found only fragments of steel, glass, and concrete, would they underestimate us as we underestimate the ancients? Perhaps the most haunting thought is that what we rediscover in ruins may not be their pinnacle, but only their remnants. Göbekli Tepe might have been one site among many. Puma Punku's precision blocks could be debris from a greater complex now lost. What if the true heights of those civilizations were erased, leaving us only shadows? And yet the flame endures. The same imagination that raised the trilithon at Baalbek sparks in the minds of those who launch rockets to Mars. The same patience that carved serpents into limestone fuels scientists tracing DNA in ancient soil. Across time, the human flame burns, fragile yet resilient, flickering yet never extinguished. As we approach the final step of our journey, we return to the larger question. What do these echoes, the ruins, the myths, the alignments, the human brilliance, mean for us today? They suggest not only that forgotten advanced civilizations may have existed before us, but that their legacies still shape who we are. They challenge us to wonder whether our own age is unique, or simply another chapter in an endless cycle of rise and erasure. And so, we arrive at the threshold of reflection. The forgotten voices of the past whisper still, urging us to listen, to remember, to imagine. What if their stories are not gone, but waiting in silence, waiting for us to recognize them in the mirror of our own fragility? Night settles softly across the ruins we have wandered. Stones warmed by day now cool under starlight. The journey has carried us from Turkey's carved pillars to Java's buried pyramid, from drowned coastlines to mountains crowned with impossible walls. We have traced myths of continents swallowed by oceans, examined the scars of cosmic catastrophe, listened to stories passed in whispers across millennia, and felt the brilliance of ancient minds still pulsing in stone. All of these fragments converge into a single haunting possibility, that advanced civilizations once existed before us, and their echoes still ripple through time. The metaphor of the shattered mirror returns. We have pieced together shards, Göbekli Tepe, Gunung Padang, Dwarka, Pavlopetri, Baalbek, Sacsayhuamán, Puma Punku. Each shard reflects light but never the whole image. Myths of Atlantis, Lemuria, and Mu glimmer at the edges, suggesting continents we cannot find but memories we cannot silence. Geological layers speak of cataclysms, floods, fires, sudden freezes, that would have shattered any civilization, no matter how brilliant. Oral traditions preserve voices across generations, recounting lost lands and rising seas as though refusing to let memory sink completely. Perhaps the true lesson is not that we must prove these civilizations existed in the way we imagine, but that their possibility humbles us. It shows that our story is not linear, not guaranteed, not unique. Humanity rises, falls, and rises again, like waves against a shore. Knowledge can be lost in an instant, yet it can also re-emerge in strange new forms. Forgotten does not mean erased, it means waiting to be remembered. In the stones of Baalbek, we see persistence, blocks so vast they mock time itself. In the drowned streets of Pavlopetri, we see fragility, homes erased by the patient hand of the sea. In the chants of Polynesian navigators, we hear resilience, knowledge carried across oceans when maps were drowned. And in our own tools of LiDAR, DNA, and AI, we glimpse a cycle. Modern eyes uncovering ancient worlds, reminding us that we too may someday be remembered only in fragments. As you listen, let your mind drift. Imagine a city lit not by neon, but by torches and starlight, its people gazing upward, mapping constellations with the same wonder that lives in us tonight. Imagine their laughter, their stories, their songs, so human, so familiar, yet lost to the silence of ages. Then imagine future voices thousands of years from now, standing among the ruins of our world, asking the same question. Were we the first or only the latest? Where are you listening from tonight, and at what time? Perhaps as you drift into sleep, you too are part of this unbroken chain of memory, carrying forward a fragment of the story. The echoes of forgotten civilizations remain all around us, in stone, in myth, in soil, in stars. They are not answers but invitations, not conclusions but beginnings. And so we close not with certainty but with wonder. The past is not gone, it lingers, folded into time, waiting for us to listen. If these mysteries stir your curiosity, consider subscribing, so that together we may continue walking among the unknown, step by step, question by question, shard by shard. For the mirror of history is never whole, but each reflection brings us closer to seeing ourselves.